This is Mr. Dalebout. I just arrived at the Republican Idaho State Convention here at the Ford Arena in Nampa, Idaho. Let's see what happens in here.
For Turning Point USA, the fastest growing and most highly mobilized youth conservative organization in the world.
I bring you greetings from the President of the United States. He loves Idaho. If these people in the national media think they're getting him down, they are not. He has amazing staying power, and he brings to the American people what they asked him to bring, and that is strong leadership.
So the Idaho State Republican Convention is where the party determines what direction they're going to take in the next legislative session. So behind me here, right here, there's a committee, a resolutions committee that is following Robert's Rules of Order. And they are meeting to determine what sort of agendas they would like to take in the next legislative session. Like, should Idaho have 5G towers, or should we continue doing SBAC/ISAT testing, and a variety of other concerns. They meet in this committee, and then ultimately we go down to the floor. It's actually on the other side of this curtain. There's a lot of seats, and every single Republican delegate from around the state, from each county, however many they nominate, come, and they actually vote on these resolutions after they go through the committee, after they're amended and changed and filtered, and the best ideas rise to the top. And so Democrats do the same thing at their state convention as well. The national convention also does the same thing, but it's from a national perspective, not a state perspective, which is signifies federalism in our system. So shows federalism in our system, that these parties are operating at a state and a national level, and they're kind of autonomous from one another. Not only that, the counties actually have their own platforms as well, and they meet in committees and make resolutions at just a much smaller scale.
Elaine from Madison County. This is a resolution about the SBAC/ISAT opt-out. The SBAC is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. It's also known as the ISAT. It aligns with Common Core standards. It's administered every spring, beginning with 3rd through 8th graders and 10th graders. Students must use computer lab time, taking anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to complete the test. Teachers do not administer the test, but proctors are hired, and much of the testing is hand-graded, which is very costly. Not only is the length of the test a concern and the cost, but how valid is this test? After interviewing a dozen or so 10th graders randomly after the week of the ISAT SBAC testing, a third of them confessed that they read the questions but just typed whatever answer popped into their head. Surprisingly, another third admitted they didn't even read the questions, they just typed whatever they were thinking or doing that day. A couple of others who I knew were very bright students said they had opted out, and only 2 took the test seriously, but they said they were dismayed with the length of the test and the essay questions on issues that had not been covered in their schoolwork.
So typically they have rooms, but because of COVID, they can't meet in these closed rooms. So you see a few people there sitting down behind me. They're listening to a guy in a cowboy hat talk. Those are things that happen at the Republican State Convention. He's talking about property rights management. He basically had a water claim, and the federal government wanted his water because it could go down to Las Vegas and provide water for Las Vegas. So the Forest Service filed these lawsuits against him, and it was unjust. And so he's been spending the last 30 years, him and his family, fighting the federal government in court. So they also have these instructional things for guests. I'm a guest, and delegates that want to participate, although they're probably voting in the committee over there. But they educate people on what's happening in the state of Idaho or in the United States in regards to different issues. So the delegates now are starting to file in on the floor. Behind me, you can see the stage there, and the chairperson will sit up there. And then delegates will sit down these seats, and because of COVID, there's some social distancing. They can't sit in the red, they can only sit in the white. is the general session report that lists all of the platform planks and the resolutions. If we move to the platforms, you can see here some of the things that are proposed. For example, this is changing the Republican Party platform so that it says we support penalties for employers who knowingly hire illegal aliens. There's other, this one is about apportioning. So currently in Idaho, there's 35 senators based on legislative district, and this is about changing it to having a senator for every county.
Okay. The question before us is on the motion to add a new plank to the platform dealing with the apportionment of state legislators. Would the sponsor of the motion, or actually the sponsor of the platform plank, please speak in favor of the amendment? Where is it? There he is.
That the state legislatures must be apportioned on a one-man, one-vote situation. And what we have here is what we have right.
Issues, and I fully understand why a county like Kansas County or Clark County or one of those counties would feel like they were a little underrepresented. However, that's how the United States Supreme Court took this issue up. That is how Idaho was. Each county had one senator until 1964. And the United States Supreme Court took it up as a Maryland case, and they said, well, wait a minute, these counties aren't states. The state's situation with two senators is in the United States Constitution. Their counties are not states, they're created by the states. Oppose it. We don't need to have these kinds of divisions. We need to be all unified to take on the Democrats in the fall and defeat them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The minority report is informational only, so no action needs to be taken on the report. The question on the floor is the adoption of platform plank P2. Is there any discussion? And we will alternate between for and against. So that was against, so now is there a for?
Mr. Chairman, the infamous Dred Scott decision was considered irreversible as well. I am grateful that there were people who stood against that to reverse one of the most difficult and horrible decisions the Supreme Court ever made. In 1972, a progressive activist court found in the penumbra of the shadow of this very same 14th Amendment the right to murder children. We stand against that. We've been doing that for over 40 years, and we haven't won. Who's going to stop? That was a rhetorical question. The fact is, you can be all for the way that Reynolds versus Sims was decided today, but you are anti-constitutional if you are, because the ratifiers of the 14th Amendment specifically said it was never intended to have any effect on the suffrage of the individual states. Therefore, the court, which was an activist court in an 8-1 decision, created in the beginning of that early part of the 1960s what we now call a living constitution. They call it a developing constitutionalism, and I thought Republicans were against that. You can like the type of...
There were discussions. These were the discussions. The citizens, the individuals were entitled to representation. That's because the citizens of the United States, each one, has sovereignty, has individual rights granted by God when He created us. That individual sovereignty is honored in the House of Representatives. What we also had was 13 sovereign states, and states means and meant nations. They were not subdivisions of a larger government. They did not derive their authority from a larger government. They were not subjects They were sovereigns, and they retained that sovereignty in the Constitution, in its ratification, in the makeup of the Senate. It is the only part of the United States Constitution that requires 100% ratification to change.
I encourage you to oppose this because we don't need it, and it's very divisive, and it's just going to go out there and will flounder in the legislature. It takes 2/3. There's no way they're going to give up their representation. And besides, I again point out that our legislature is very supportive of the smaller communities and the rural counties and agriculture and mining and timber in this state. And I'm kind of offended that part of our party thinks we're not.
If you are in favor of adopting the proposed language, so the language that has been debated back and forth, this is the plank that was submitted by Lee Barron. If you're in favor of that proposed language on apportionment, please stand up. And those opposed, please sit down. Those opposed, please stand up. Okay, the chair is still in doubt, unfortunately. So please, everybody sit down. We're going to do a count. We have prepared for this and talked to our delegation chairs to assist us with the count.
Thank you. Yes, this is right. Okay. Canyon County.
9 in favor, 23 against.
9 in favor, 23 against. Caribou County.
Reluctantly, 0 in favor, 2 against.
The count is 245 yes, 265 no, and 1 abstention. So
Wow.
it fails. I just want to thank everyone for their debate. There was passion on both sides. I want to remind everyone that that passion is what makes the Republican Party strong. We sometimes agree, we sometimes disagree, and what you saw here is a really interesting microcosm as a party. It wasn't even, you had friends debating friends, you had people voting against friends. We are all friends, we are all trying to do the best we can, and we're trying to defeat Democrats and defeat socialism. So let's remember that. Mr. Chairman, yes.
I want to thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to be surrounded by so many devoted and hardworking Republicans.
And when I look at the top 6 planks in our platform, they talk about our faith in God and our families, talk about our agreement on the guiding forces for all of us of the U.S. Constitution.